Who won the offseason so far? Who lost the offseason? And why sometimes losing the offseason means you won the offseason? We'll talk about that today here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL second half show. Tyler Rowland is in the morning with the AM show, and I'm here in the barbershop along with David Harrison of Locked On Commanders and Locked On NFL Squad Show. We are here today to give it to you like you can't get nowhere else here on Locked On NFL. Make sure whatever you do, you tap in wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. Make sure you do it so you don't miss an episode. And today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. It's time to get on our game here with David Harrison. Here's what we're going to discuss today. Harbaugh slow planning and building a wall in L.A. I actually like what he's doing. The Bengals going against logic. That's going to cause me and David, if we were in the same room, we might wrestle because I think we have two different opinions on this. And winners and losers of the offseason. To set the template, I'm going to use this video before we even get to David. You're going to hear Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears. He's one of the teams that I think is winning. He's going to mention somebody from one of the teams that we're going to talk about in segment 2. So we're going to stick to the Bears side of it. But the Bears are one of the teams I believe is winning the offseason. And with David's permission, before we even hear from him, we're going to listen to Lauren Cox.
Do you want to give up not only all of your important cap space to not, after if you trade for Hendrickson, you're not really signing any other big name free agents. It's all cheap guys from there. And then also give up 2 of your rookies that you also get to add to your roster, right? It's not just taking away free agent opportunities, but then it's taking away NFL draft opportunities, where if you give up, say, one of your second-round picks and your third-round pick this season, then the Bears will be left with just a first and a second, and then you wouldn't pick again until the 5th round. So then you have a smaller draft class, fewer opportunities with those draft picks to get young offensive linemen, to get young defensive linemen, to add more depth at receiver, at linebacker, in the secondary, get a safety of the future, right? Like, it becomes more and more challenging. And so I think the question for the Bears is, like, how much are you all in on this year?
He was talking about Trey Hendrickson. We're going to get to him because he is the main subject of our second segment. But the Bears are showing some restraint there. This is the restraint that I wish they did not show, because everything he just mentioned, Trey Hendrickson, is worth it. However, I do believe you have to balance it out a little bit, Dave, when you're talking about all of the additions they've already made.
Yeah, I think the thing about doing what the Chicago Bears are doing, they're doing this right? Like, they're doing a lot of good things for Caleb Williams, and that's kind of the key. Like, at the end of the day, this is a quarterback-driven league. Whether you like it or not, whether you think running backs are undervalued, whatever, this is a quarterback-driven league. You have to have a quarterback, and you have to protect said quarterback. There are 3 ways you protect the quarterback. Offensive line is the most obvious. The second is the quarterback himself protecting himself, which Caleb Williams, let's be honest, does not do that all of the time. The third thing is scheme. Move the pocket. Move your quarterback if he's mobile enough. Get quick throws if you know your offensive line can't block. Do all these things, right? Those are the 3 ways the Chicago Bears or any NFL team can protect their quarterback. Last year, they were lacking in Caleb Williams because he's a gunslinger. He's a superhero. He's going to hold that stinging ball as long as he possibly can, take hits, do whatever he needs to do. Hopefully, he's going to get a year smarter. That's more so on Caleb than it is anybody else. They were lacking on the offensive line. They've gone out and done really good things to try to improve that on paper. How it works on the field, we're not going to talk about that in March. In March, we're talking about paper. On paper, they've done a good job of improving the line. They brought in Ben Johnson, who just got done coordinating 2 potential Super Bowl runs for the Detroit Lions with a quarterback in Jared Goff who cannot move. Like, Wig, you and I would probably escape the pocket faster than Jared Goff can escape the pocket. And Ben Johnson schemed him up some clean looks. Okay, some really clean looks. So Ben Johnson can scheme up those looks for Jared Goff. You imagine he can scheme them up for Caleb Williams. So the Chicago Bears have done a really good job of doing things for Caleb Williams to make him better and protect him moving forward. Love it. They're not a player away from going to the Super Bowl.
Gotcha.
Like, bottom line, which is why you don't trade all your premium draft capital for a guy like Trey Hendrickson, because Trey is not going to be here when you recoup that draft capital and potentially get your team on the hump. Because the Chicago Bears, look, I mean, again, every year there's a surprise team, right? But the way you look at the Chicago Bears, even with the improvements they made, they look at least 2 years away from legitimately contending to go to a Super Bowl if they get these next 2 years right. By that time, you're now preparing to pay Caleb Williams. You can't pay Trey Hendrickson $30 to $40 million and prepare to pay Caleb Williams and get him weapons and keep an offensive line, yada, 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 no matter what the Bengals think. So I think Lauren kind of hits the nail on the head right there. This is not a move that the Bears should add to an already good offseason.
Now, you mentioned the point. All of those are very good points. I have nothing to add because you said it so eloquently. So you mentioned the point about having a quarterback. If you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, you need to keep all of your draft picks, especially if you have him on a rookie deal. Those draft picks come after him. He will re-up while those guys are still on their rookie deals. I'm going to give you an example of another team. We're going to talk about Washington and the Bengals in segment 2. There's another team that has the exact same situation, sort of, and they're doing a really, really good job in free agency. And I'm talking about the Vrabel Patriots up in New England with their young quarterback. And here's Mike Debate talking about their offseason and what they did early in free agency.
Over the past 48 hours, the New England Patriots have bolstered their defense at every level, and they chose wisely by not forgetting the secondary. I'm Mike Debate, host of the Locked On Patriots podcast, and the signing of Milton Williams may have earned galactic headlines, but the Pats signing of cornerback Carlton Davis might actually be equally as important to their defensive backfield. The Pats struggled to cover multiple receiver sets in 2024. That's because they did not have a dedicated presence opposite All-Pro Christian Gonzalez. They won't have that problem this season. In coming over from the Detroit Lions, Carlton Davis is very familiar with Terrell Williams, the new defensive coordinator in New England, and his aggressive style of defense. That means he should continue to excel playing in man coverage. Davis had one of the highest rates of man coverage in the NFL last season. Now that he's going to be aligning as the Pats' primary number 2 option, should have no problem adding to his 2 interceptions and 11 pass breakups, which he compiled in an injury-shortened campaign last year.
They have infused talent on that defense with a young quarterback in Vrabel's first offseason. So somebody might say, well, come on, Wiggins and Harrison. Y'all just said don't be giving a bunch of guys a whole bunch of big contracts while you're on a rookie deal. Here's the difference. They don't have to give up their draft choices in order to obtain this player the way the Bears would have if they signed Trey Hendrickson.
Right. Yeah, it's okay to pay dudes, right? It's okay to pay guys. It's what you don't want to do, again, is give up all your draft capital unless you're in a position to F them picks, let's go get a ring, right? Less need, right? Like that, then you can do that kind of stuff. Again, this is a team, the New England Patriots, who are at least 2 years away, theoretically, again, you know, the caveat of any year, anything can happen. Got it. But when you look at them realistically, they're at least 2 years away from truly competing. So you go out there and you hire a defensive-minded head coach, Mike Vrabel, who has had a lot of success in the National Football League as a player on what? Very defensively strong teams in New England. People, you know, look, we want to crown Tom Brady and give him all his credit and the GOAT and all this. And listen, Tom is great. But what a lot of people seem to forget is a very good amount of his Super Bowls were won on the backs of very good defenses. Now, give Tom a little bit of credit back for that, because part of the reason they were able to have those defenses is he was almost never, if not never, actually, I think he was never the highest paid player on his own team, meaning they had resources to go get some of these really good defensive players or a guy like Randy Moss at the twilight of his career to bring those out. So anyway, all that aside, Mike Vrabel understands young quarterback on a rookie deal. We can do one of two things, or well, one of three things, I suppose. We could try to be really balanced, which you're putting a little bit of pressure on your quarterback because now he's got to carry a balanced team to rise him up, or you can go all in on weapons. And listen, they tried going after Chris Godwin. They asked the Philadelphia Eagles if they would trade A.J. Brown. So they did at least flirt with the idea of just going weapon crazy and Drake, let's just run the top off the scoreboard. That didn't work. Now let's solidify the defensive side of the ball. And the thing you love about these types of deals is if you have smart GMs, you look at Carlton Davis, you know, the guy that Mike Debate was talking about specifically. I'm very familiar with Carlton from his days with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You want to talk about a dude who fits a very physical, intimidating type of defensive style? Listen, when the Bucs won the Super Bowl in 2020 NFL season, you know what their secondary was nicknamed, Wig? The Grave Diggers.
Come on.
You want to talk? I mean, you want to talk about a guy who fits the aggressive personality. He's part of the gravedigger crew. You know what I'm saying? So Carlton Davis absolutely fits that bill. Absolutely a great second corner opposite of Christian Gonzalez. I love the fit in New England. But here's the thing about his contract. There is already a built-in out 2 years from now. If this doesn't work out, Carlton Davis, 2 years from now, New England Patriots, they move on from him. They save about $32 million in salary cap space. Okay. However, they could also move on from him next year. If it don't work out this year, they could make him a post-June 1st cut next year and take that $24 million in dead cap, split it between 2025, 2026, and you're still talking about saving about $8 million in 2026, and you're going to save about $10 million in 2027. So guess what? It's a 1-year deal. I'd sent this tweet out a little while ago, Wig. Everybody hears these 3-year deals. I've been hearing about Javon Kinlaw with the Washington Commanders. I can't believe they're giving him $15 million for 3 years, y'all. It's a 1-year deal. It is a 1-year deal. If it needs to be a 1-year deal, it's a 1-year deal. So that's why it's okay to pay some of these free agents out here. Keep your draft capital. Keep building the team around those guys. And guess what? If these veterans don't work out, they're going to be on the free agent market again next year.
Now, check this out. When Jalen Hurts is on a rookie deal, the Philadelphia Eagles gave a bunch of money to an aging guy who was already in-house named Fletcher Cox. They also paid Darius Slay. Within the last 2 seasons.
Hey, I remember that Slay move.
Right. Hey. They drafted a 3 technique and drafted a corner. They got 1 extra year out of both of those guys. Now their replacements are already on the team. So I anticipate what's going to happen is the Patriots are going to learn how to win with these guys. About 2 years from now, they're going to use the capital that they kept because they didn't trade it away. They're going to draft another 3 technique. And they're also going to draft another corner. And Carlton Davis is going to be gone. And then Milton Williams is going to be gone. And then they're going to have players that know how to play. And Christian Gonzalez is going to get a big deal. And the other guy on the other side is going to be on a rookie deal. This is how it works, man. And these teams that do this the right way always know how to line this up. We got a good show lined up for you. We're going to talk about the Bengals, and I'm going to let Dave tell me why the Washington Commanders that he covers are also one of the winners. I think Dave and I disagree a little bit on the Bengals being winners or losers. We'll discuss that and more here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Game Time. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in and making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Game Time picks. Listen, curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater. It's easy ticket shopping. All of these great, amazing deals, super deals, peace of mind because you know where your seat is because you get views before you buy with no surprise fees at checkout. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. What time is it? Man, it's game time. All right, let's move on along here. The Cincinnati Bengals kept their big 3 together 2 years, I think 3 or 4 years ago. There's a Super Bowl. They almost won. Almost doesn't get you any trophies. However, the 3 best players on their team that day, if you include Joe Mixon, I say it's 3, maybe 4 guys. Joe Mixon is now in Houston, but it was their quarterback, Joe Burrow, their receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Let's listen to James. And I'm going to tell you, man, these dudes from Locked On Bengals, they're giddy. They are absolutely giddy about what happened yesterday. I'm going to let them explain it to you in about a minute and 50 seconds.
The Cincinnati Bengals have locked up their receivers for the contracts that were agreed upon in recent days. Huge news to get it done. And it's a big moment in Bengals history. And as I'm recording here, I'm at Paycor Stadium. And look, it's something I honestly never thought I would see. I just didn't think that they would sign both Jamar and T up until 3 months ago. Up until you find out about Joe and how Joe viewed it. And by the way, Joe views it like I think a lot of smart football people view it. You're going to hear a lot of dumb football people say, "Oh, well, how can you pay these 2 receivers?" And I get that. And the reason I say it's dumb is because it's really easy to see why the Bengals would go this route. It's really easy to see why they would say, oh, 26-year-old T. Higgins, we will buy that stock for the next 4 seasons. We will obviously buy every bit of Jamar Chase. We've seen what he's done since entering the league, but T. Higgins has been awesome. And you want to keep those kind of players, and for them to keep both of those guys, it's a huge, huge day for the Bengals. It's a huge day for T, huge day for Jamar. And again, for the majority of T's tenure, I don't think that there were many realistic scenarios where this happened. And yet Joe, Jamar, and T made it happen. And part of that is sacrifice on T's part. Part of that is selflessness on Joe and Jamar's part, or the fact that Joe's just willing to be blunt and outspoken when it comes to T's status. But Jamar.
Now, listen, we have seen a lot of times where the quarterback has gotten his money and has not gone to bat for his really, really good players. I understand that. A little bit of this tells me, though, he probably should have been doing that and imploring them to get some offensive linemen to help him so he ain't running for his life, too.
Yeah, listen, I love James Rapine. I'm actually kind of a closet Bengals fan, honestly. My dad grew up in Ohio. He was a Browns fan, but also just having an affinity for Ohio. I actually really enjoy when the Bengals are doing well. I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. Jamar Chase absolutely deserves to be paid. He's one of the best receivers in the National Football League. T. Higgins absolutely deserved to be paid as well this free agent period, and he should have got his money somewhere else. And the Cincinnati Bengals should have taken that 3rd-round pick in 2026 and been happy with it. Because here's the problem. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. I'm talking about a dude that if the Bengals were above 500 going into Thanksgiving, is the leader in the MVP race. You have arguably, if not the best wide receiver in the National Football League on your team. You've got the NFL sack leader on the opposite side of the ball that I hope you are able to find a way to re-sign, because he wants to stay in Cincy and you want him, and I want everybody to have everything they want. And you didn't make the playoffs. You didn't make the playoffs. You have the 27th ranked offensive line in pass blocking efficiency. Guess what those bright, shiny wide receivers are doing downfield when you have the 27th ranked offensive line in pass block efficiency?
Waving their hand and shrugging their shoulders.
They're doing a whole lot of sweating. The Fitbits are tracking all them steps. The calories are getting burned. The strength and conditioning staff is getting their money. And Joe Burrow is laying on the ground, 48 stinking times, wondering what the heck is going on around him. I counted this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times in 2024. Joe Burrow was sacked 3 or more times in a single game.
Jeez.
He got sacked 7 times against the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, how many times can you count on one hand last year how many times you said the Denver Broncos and their elite pass rush?
Right.
7 times, 7 times. Who's the Cincinnati Bengals running back? Not non-Bengals fans. Who's the Cincinnati Bengals running back?
Yeah.
Who's the Cincinnati Bengals tight end?
Yeah.
Who's the Cincinnati Bengals defensive line outside of Trey Hendrickson? Who's the Cincinnati Bengals secondary? Listen, I love the fandom, okay? And I love that everybody who has a Cincinnati Bengals T. Higgins jersey, you can still wear that bad boy with pride. I absolutely love that Jamar Chase and T and Joe got everything they wanted, because I'm all about humans realizing their potential. Here's the problem. You're banging your head against the wall, hoping that it's going to stop hurting. That's a James Yarko saying, and I absolutely love it. And I hope I'm wrong, because I said some similar stuff about the Buffalo Bills last year, and lo and behold, they're right on the cusp of going to the Super Bowl. So I hope I'm wrong. And I hope that, James, if you hear me say this, and I'm one of these dumb people, and I'm fine with you calling me dumb, brother, I hope that when it comes to next January, next February, you can remind me that how I was this dumb on March 19th. Please do, because, dude, as happy as I am for these individuals to get everything they wanted, I do not see how this produces winning football for the Cincinnati Bengals at a level that goes beyond the Dallas Cowboys for the last 20 years.
All right, so we're gonna push the Commanders into segment 3, because I gotta agree with you.
No.
So 2 things can be right at once. Everything you said is factually correct, but letting T. Higgins go ain't gonna solve it. And I'll tell you why. Because the one thing, the Bengals haven't done much right in the draft the last 7-8 years, right? We know that. That's the problem. The three things they did do right are Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. So you keep them together like Philly. They got all of their receivers and quarterbacks, and everybody else is making money. But here's the problem. That doesn't help them improve in the ways that you talked about where they're deficient, because those problems need to be fixed by their personnel department, by the scouting department, by their front office. And ever since I've been a little boy, everybody's been telling me that the Bengals are the worst in the league at that, and they still are. Somebody went through their draft picks the last 5 years, and man, it's ridiculous how many day 2, day 3 picks just did not make it when it comes to comparing them to the other teams that do have guys that did make it. So here's what happens. Letting T. Higgins go and getting draft picks isn't going to help their situation, and they know it because that's their weakness. Nope. Their strength is they got a bird in their hand, and they might as well keep that bird in their hand, right? The problem with them is they're going to get up and wake up and look in the mirror, and they're still going to be the same people that keep making those mistakes.
Hey,
and that is the problem.
They're going to be the people trying to release that bird wig, and that bird's going to be dead. They're going to realize, like, man, I've done hold on to this bird too long. Let me tell you what the 2026 third round draft pick won't fix. You're right that the money they pay T. Higgins and the money they're about to pay Trey Hendrickson could have fixed. You could assign at least 2 interior offensive linemen to go with your offensive line. Keep Orlando Brown Jr. over there. You got Amarius Mims. Maybe you want to keep believing in him and can you develop him? And then you spend a top 90, top 100 draft pick on another interior offensive lineman. Now you start building a fortress around Joe Burrow. You go out there and you sign, I don't know, a guy like De'Ami Brown. And let me tell you something. De'Ami Brown with a quarterback that's not on his back 48 times.
Right.
No, I can't say that. I can't even go that far and say that's better than T. Higgins with Joe Burrow on his back 48 times. But there are receivers out there that you could have paid less money or draft that with Jamar Chase, and oh, by the way, a very talented tight end draft class, which the Bengals could still go out there and get a very talented tight end. So this race is not over by a long shot. But you do all these things, and that number 2 receiver that's not T. Higgins, with all that other stuff around, with Joe Burrow with more time to throw, could prove to be more effective for you. Maybe not as productive, maybe not as illustrious, not as maybe as much of a fan favorite, got it, but prove to be more effective, which is what gets you wins, than T. Higgins might be. And again, like I'll be honest with you, like I want the Bengals to be successful. I'm a closet Ohio just football fan. I want the Bengals to be successful. So I hope I'm wrong here, but this is how I feel. And I'm going to be honest with you.
Yep. And so a good example of what you're talking about, we're going to talk Commanders, I promise you, but we're going to lead off talking about a team that did something that's exactly what you're just talking about. And that is the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. We'll discuss that and more here in just a second on Locked On NFL.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, let's hear from my boy Drogi out at, is it Daniel Wade or Drogi? I don't know who did this, but it's Locked On Chargers. Those are my 2 homeboys. Listen, last year, Jim Harbaugh said, they asked him if he was going to get Justin Herbert some weapons. He said, yep. He drafted Joe Alt. He said offensive lineman is a weapon. And lo and behold, I really think he believes it, because when they started the free agency period, their first signing was a power running back. And we're going to hear from them right now. And I'll tell you who they signed since this was made.
The Chargers have made their first splash in free agency, signing running back Najee Harris, and although it's still early, right now, I'm struggling to see the vision. This is Daniel Wade here from Locked On Chargers, coming to you with the news that according to Adam Schefter, Najee Harris is signing a 1-year deal in LA worth up to $9.25 million for a running back that's only averaged 3.9 yards per carry and has some significant tread taken off the tires with over 1,000 carries in those 4 seasons for a physical runner. That being said, he does, as a physical runner, fit with what Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh want to do. He can batter people. He's forced more missed tackles, according to PFF, than anyone since 2021. Yet, I still feel like the Chargers would have to elevate him to get their money's worth, and without any significant upgrades on the interior of the offensive line so far, It's hard for me to see them doing that. There's still time, but there's going to have to be some big moves made by Joe Ortiz if they want to rekindle the excitement this Chargers fan base had with the amount of cap space that they went into free agency with. But for the full breakdown, make sure to check out the Locked On Chargers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, that was my boy Daniel Wade, and he was omniscient. He said they needed to add on the interior of that line, and we just talked about the Bengals that wouldn't. Guess what they did? They signed Mekhi Becton, and they're going to park all 360 pounds right next to a 330-pound Joe Alt. And then they signed Andre James, who suffered a little bit with the switch between gap and zone. And now he's going back to San Diego. He's going to L.A., where he's going to run exactly the thing that made him thrive 2 years ago. They did exactly what he said they should do and what you said the Bengals should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, again, I always attribute this to Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks as the first people I heard say it. I don't know if they made it up on their own, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's really hard to be a good football team when you're bad in the trenches. Hello, Cincinnati. It's really hard to be a bad football team when you're good in the trenches.
Absolutely.
Hello, Los Angeles. And again, this doesn't mean that, the Chargers are going to be this world beater and be all this, much better than the Cincinnati Bengals or anything like that. You still got to put it on the field. But when you talk about a team who's trying to protect their quarterback, a team who's trying to provide him the opportunity to be as successful as he can be, look, you can put the greatest rock band of all time on a rickety stage, and guess what? That thing's still going to collapse. You can put the worst, I don't want to say the worst, but you could put a lesser rock band on a solid stage, and they will sell more tickets because people are actually going to watch the show. So look, I mean, listen, that's a very basic way of putting it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to act like, if you never invest in the trenches, you're just never going to be successful. But yeah, man, I mean, you have to like what the Chargers are doing, just focusing on making sure they're getting stronger in the trenches.
And you're right, and that ties all together. And once again, I don't have to add much to it because you said everything that needs to be said. Now I'm going to let you cook on the Washington Commanders. Sometimes teams get to the point, I think they are winners. Some people go, I don't know. They did a good job building their team up to a certain point and fell a little bit short against Philadelphia. So tell us and explain to us why, if Washington's a winner or loser, and how the two players that they traded for, how it doesn't really hurt them in the long run if this thing doesn't pan out this season for Washington.
Yeah, I mean, look, you trade a 5th-round pick for Debo Samuel. That doesn't hurt you, and I'm not worried about the money that they're paying him, $17.55 whatever $1 million it is. They got the money to spend. It's not a problem. That's Josh Harris' problem. That's not a David Harrison problem. You give up a 5th-round draft pick for Debo Samuel when you're a team that's on the cusp of going to the Super Bowl. Like, that's a guy that makes your offense better, right? Now, Laramie Tunsil, trading for Laramie Tunsil. I mean, honestly, that's a steal of a deal as far as I'm concerned, because people want to talk about the fact, well, he's over 30 years old. He's turning 31 years old, later this year. Okay, Trent Williams is almost 37 years old, still one of the best left tackles in the National Football League. Doesn't mean that Laramie Tunsil is going to be a 5-more-time Pro Bowler, 10-time Pro Bowler by the time he turns 37. But I'm just saying that the fact that he's over 30 doesn't mean the wheels are about to fall off. So I'm not going to be worried about that until we actually see it happening. And we spoke to Laramie, and he told us, look, he's doing things to make sure, as best he can, right, that he stays healthy for as long as possible. So you talk about protecting your quarterback. This is an offensive line in Washington that honestly ranks pretty well in pass blocking efficiency. The problem is they rank really well because despite the fact they give the 3rd most pressures in the NFL last year, their quarterback never got sacked. Why? Because Jaden Daniels knows how to move, and he can run, and he can get away from all those things. So hidden secretly, and not secretly to Commanders fans, the Washington Commanders had an offensive line issue. So they go out there, they get Laramie Tunsil. He upgrades their left tackle spot immediately, upgrades their offensive line immediately, and it allows them to move Brandon Coleman, who for a 3rd-rounder starting year 1 in the NFL as a left tackle didn't do terribly. He's now going to move to the right side where you're hopefully going to have a little bit of a better opportunity to be successful. They've got now talent they can move inside while Sam Cosmi gets healthy, all this other stuff. Bottom line is the O-line got better, and they still have draft capital they could potentially invest in it. The question, Wig, is defense. 31st ranked defense against the run last year. The Philadelphia Eagles still have the best, if not one of the best, offensive lines in football, and they re-signed Saquon Barkley to a fat deal. I like Javon Kinlaw. I think he fits with Washington a lot better than he fit in other places. I like Eddie Goldman for run defense sets, right? He's not going to be an every down player, but run defense sets, like heavy sets. I think he's a really good dude there. Johnny Newton certainly has potential. I don't know, man. They haven't done enough to improve the run defense for me to really call them winners. I'm not going to call them losers because you got the 5th ranked offense in the NFL in scoring, and you just made them a lot better. They could be the 1st or 2nd ranked offense in scoring. But like we just talked about the Cincinnati Bengals, you still got to defend. You still got to stop. And I'll tell you, even for all their deficiencies on defense, a lot of people don't realize the Washington Commanders were actually top 15 in the league last year and giving up points. So they actually didn't give up as many points as you might think especially with their run defense ranking.
Bend but don't break. Yeah.
There's a little bit of addition by addition, but it's like Spades addition, not traditional addition. If we score more points and we score them faster, you have to get into a pass happy set faster, which negates your run offense. And no, we don't have to defend your run, right? If you can't run the ball because we put up 40 points in the first half, we don't got to defend the run. I don't know that that's what the Commanders are doing, but right now, like if you were to put me against the wall and say, tell me how the run defense got better this offseason right now, or the world's going to end, I'm going to tell you, well, the Commanders got Debo Samuel and a better left tackle so they can put up more points in the first half, force other teams to come out in the second half pass happy, which negates the run. That's how they improve their run defense, which is not a great answer, but it's all we got right now. We'll see what they do in the draft.
All right, so basically it's like I'm going to wreck your game plan. Your game plan is to wear us down.
Yeah.
Go ahead, take 10 minutes to score. I'm going to score in 3 seconds. And
Right.
Now what you're going to do, eventually those headshots are going to take a toll before those body shots take a toll. So I would say Washington is a winner because if they want to fix their run defense, this is the draft to do it. And right where they're sitting at, there's Darius Alexander. And then in the next round, there's Jamari Caldwell. There's all of these dudes, the 2 kids out of Oregon. If you want to fix it, if you want to
give me Harmon.
Yeah, if you want to fix your run defense, picking 29th, this is the draft for you to do it. And they're going to be able to get a really good player because this is
the rest of these Locked On hosts. Y'all let Derek Harmon get to number 29 in the Locked On mock draft. That dude's coming to Washington, and I'm celebrating the Super Bowl in my short. I'm telling you right now.
I got you, man. So Washington, the Chargers, the Bears, the Patriots are the obvious winners. The Bengals is yet to be determined, and we ain't even mentioned teams like the Dolphins because guess what?
Can I give you one more winner?
Come on.
The Rams.
I like it.
Listen, the Rams are 1 play away from beating the eventual Super Bowl champions. They just brought Devontae Adams, who despite playing for the Raiders and the Jets last year and only playing in 14 games, still had 8 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards receiving, and almost 100 catches.
That's one play
what he's going to do with Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, they brought back Alaric Jackson. They brought back all their key players. They still have 3 picks in the top 101. Now, 2 of them are from picks 90 to 101, okay? But they still have 3 picks in the top 101.
They've done a good job with those picks.
They do a good job with those picks. And let me tell you something, Wig. I referenced it earlier after them picks. Here's what I'm doing if I'm Los Angeles. You all let Tyler Warren get to within striking distance. And if I'm the Rams, if Tyler Warren gets to within striking distance, I'm trading everything I can to jump up and get me Tyler Warren. And you put Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, Tyler Warren, Devontae Adams on a team that was 1 play away from beating the eventual Super Bowl champions in the NFC West, where the San Francisco 49ers are intentionally taking a step back. The Seattle Seahawks are going to take a step back.
They're losing.
Arizona Cardinals are not much. They're not only going to win that division, they're going to go to the playoffs, and they're going to be a much better team than they were this last year. The Rams, I'm telling you right now, if I had $100 free and I was a Rams fan, I'm going to FanDuel. I'm putting $100 in the Rams to win the Super Bowl. Not because I know it's going to happen, but because they're very sneakily getting a lot better in a situation where they were already, like I said, for the 4th time, 1 play away from beating the eventual Super Bowl champions.
No doubt about it. If you want to realize or find out whether or not those people will be where David hopes they be, especially Mr. Harmon, tune in to Locked On NFL Draft. Make sure you check out Damian Parson and Coach Keith Sanchez. They will let you know where these prospects rank, and you can't get anybody in the business that does it any better. Make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcast. We could stay and do this all day, man, but we got to go. We ain't got to go home, but we got to get out of here. For David Harrison, for T. Wig, we are gone here on Locked On NFL. We'll see you next time.